Good evening. I can see participants' numbers are climbing steadily. Thanks for logging on. This is the Now Teach Information evening. We're just going to wait to make sure that as many people who are joining us as possible have logged on. So if you can bear with us for 30 seconds, 1 minute or so, we will be ready to start very, very soon. Thanks. Wonderful, thank you. It is 1 minute past 6, so it seems appropriate to start. We'll do some introductions. So anyone who is right now furiously clicking on their Zoom link will not miss too much. Welcome to tonight's event. I'm just going to turn my camera on, so I'm not a disembodied voice. My name is Matt Crowder. I'm part of the recruitment and marketing team here at Now Teach. Behind the scenes, we've got Maria Fleckenskar, who's doing our tech, and we've got Joe and Rachel from our recruitment team, who are going to be behind the scenes answering your questions as the event goes on. Tonight is the penultimate information evening for this academic year. We are still welcoming applications from career changers looking to start in September. So if that's you and we haven't heard from you, please do get your application in. It's not too late by any means. I am really pleased to be here this evening, but I am especially pleased that we're going to be hearing not from just one career changer, but two tonight. We've got Joe and Deepak, who we will be meeting properly in a minute. They've both been teaching for about 2 years, and just to start off by saying a big thanks to them for being here. You as well as an audience, thank you for being here. We always have people at different stages logging on. You might have just started thinking about teaching and have found Now Teach, or you too might be getting ready to start in September. I hope we can answer all of your questions. To make sure that we can answer all of your questions, and we'll pop on to the next slide there, Maria. We have a Q&A box. To be very clear, it's not the chat box. Zoom has a specific Q&A bit. That's what we're going to be used today. So type your question there, click send, and Joe and Rachel and Amy will type a reply, or if maybe it's a question that is best answered by Joe and Deepak, will sort of nominate it for a live answer. One of the key questions that I really want to cover tonight is quite simple. Why bother with Now Teach? What's the point? Some people we talk to do wonder if they really want to join something new when they've got a school, they've got a training provider, they've got to look through the lot of their exam certificates, they've got budgets to work out. Do they want something else? The plain and simple answer to that question is yes, you do. Now Teach is not more work, it's not more requirements, plain and simple. It's about more support. And Joe and Deepak are going to be explaining some of that today. We're going to move to a little bit of finding out about you actually first. Maria, could we put the polls up? Part of the reason we just want to start off with answering some questions is to check that we're answering the kind of things that you care about. But we've also got a question around the kind of events that we want to run. I'll just leave this up and talk if you could answer as I talk. Since obviously lockdown and pandemic, we've been running online events like this. It's been really good for making sure that people all around the country can log in. But we also know that meeting Now Teachers, meeting advisors face-to-face is a really special thing. So really interested in knowing if you would attend an in-person event, and if so, where would that be? So I think, Maria, if you leave it up for a little bit longer, and once we've got a good number of answers, we can carry on. The key thing to say about Now Teach is that we want to see a world where children can benefit, because talented people like you, who've already had successful careers, become teachers and bring their skills and experiences to the schools that need them most. And we want to support you to make that happen. We're not going to cover every aspect of it, but we do have 55 minutes until 7 p.m. to tackle those key bits and delve a bit deeper into Now Teach. We've got some great speakers lined up, but before them, let's hear from some other Now Teachers about their experience of changing career in this short film. Thank you.
So I spent 30 years as a marketer.
I was a journalist and an author.
I was an investment banker.
I'd had a catering business for almost 30 years.
I've had a military career and then worked in consulting, and then I went into teaching.
I really felt like, okay, I've got like 10, 15 years left of working.
What should I do that makes me feel like I want to get out of bed every morning?
I found the retirement decision was a difficult decision to make.
I wanted to give back.
I wanted a challenge.
It's never too late to change career. It's never too late to do something new. Let's give it a shot and see what happens.
My husband said, oh, at last, because I've been talking about it for years.
People telling me, you're really courageous, which I think in Britain is code for you're crazy.
The thing about us as career changers is you're bringing to the school environment a unique set of experiences that can only be valuable to their children.
Everybody's starting from scratch.
Every month you look back and feel, God, I've got a little bit better.
The kids are hilarious. They really are very funny.
I feel fully alive. I have purpose.
It's the most rejuvenating thing I could possibly imagine doing. I can see the impact that I make on a day-to-day basis, knowing that I'm helping these kids prepare themselves for the future.
Thanks, Maria. And a special thanks actually to all those Now Teachers who actually contributed to that video. I always enjoy watching it. Now, you may know the face on the screen in front of you. That's Lucy Calloway. She is the former Financial Times columnist who gave up her job, the nicest job in the world, according to her, to become a teacher because she wanted to be useful. I'm probably stealing some of her best lines actually already. So we'll move on to the next section, which is Lucy couldn't be here tonight. So we've actually got a video message that she's recorded explaining why she became a teacher. So once again, Lucy, over to you.
Hello, I'm Lucy Calloway. I'm the co-founder of Now Teach. I'm delighted to welcome you today. Really pleased that you are interested, possibly, in becoming a teacher. I set up this organisation together with Katie Wargrave 4 years ago because I suspected that there were people maybe like you and definitely like me back then who were tired of their old careers and who wanted to do something more useful with their lives. It seemed to me that there was this huge waste of talent of people who had lots of experience of the world in general and wanted to become teachers, but nobody was helping them. Nobody was saying, yes, you know, the profession needs people like us and here's how you do it. So that was 4 years ago. I have now been teaching myself for 4 years. Look, it's been hard. Everybody said to me at the time, this will be the hardest thing you've ever done. I didn't believe them, but my goodness, they were right. But it was also, you know, if I wanted to do something useful, which I did, nothing could be more useful than this. Every single day that you're a teacher, even on a bad day, you leave school knowing that children know something that they didn't know that very morning. And that was because of the effort that you have made. So what could be more rewarding than that? Teaching isn't for everybody. Of course I know that. And maybe you're wondering whether it's for you. Well, I mean, the only ultimate test is sort of try it and see. But I can give you a couple of pointers, because obviously we don't want loads of people who are going to start doing it who then drop out. But I think there are two really important motivations. And if you have both of them, then this really might be right for you. The first one is that you yourself want to learn something new. You want to push yourself. You want the challenge of this. And that's a sort of selfish motivation, but my goodness, it will help you in the dark days in the January of your first year. But the other motivation is just as important. You need to want to do this for the sake of your students. If you have both of those, this really might be for you. But there are a couple of extra things too. You will be surrounded by teenagers all day long. If that doesn't excite you, then it's been very nice to meet you, but goodbye. Equally, you need to want to spend all day thinking about the subject that you're going to teach. You need to find it really interesting, because if you're not interested in it, neither will they be. Lots of other people will talk to you as you go through this about what we can offer, but in the end, we will help you find the right teacher training program for you. And in the end, we offer you each other. We all want to do the same thing. We all want to become better teachers. And nothing makes me as co-founder happier than that you are out there watching this video thinking maybe teaching will be the right thing for you. I hope it really is. And I hope to meet you one day.
Thank you, Lucy. Lucy is an avowed technophobe, so the fact that she was able to record that herself is she's very proud of that and very impressed with her. We were, which leads us nicely on to tonight's main event. Joe and Deepak, if you could reveal yourself. No, that's Lucy. There we go. There's Joe. Deepak, come on in. The water's fine. Excellent. Joe and Deepak both started teaching in September 2020, so middle of the pandemic. They changed career in, let's face it, one of the most difficult periods in modern life, and here they are still standing. So without further ado, let's talk to them. Joe, starting with you. Can you tell us a bit about why you changed career and how Now Teach supported you in those first stages?
Sure.
I also, one other, sub question there. I also know that finances are something that people considering career change are very, finances are something people are very concerned about. So really interesting if you could reflect on how you made sure you could afford being a student again.
Absolutely, no problem. Sorry, jumping in there to answer the question. I'm too used to year 7. So I sort of feel as if it was a career change for me, obviously, but I'd always had a little bit of teaching going on in my life. Whilst I was doing Egyptology, I did teaching to younger students, so to undergraduates and master's students, and always loved it, really enjoyed it, really came away from it very energized, but didn't want to go into academia full time. I enjoyed my PhD and I did a postdoc afterwards, and then I sort of ran out of steam a little bit. So jumped around a few other areas, ended up in B2B marketing, but running the IT side of things rather than the actual B2B marketing, which is still a mystery to me. And yeah, just carried on a bit of teaching alongside it all. I was teaching adult evening classes in Egyptology, and just sort of hit that age where you start to reconsider, I guess, is this the thing that's going to make me happy long term? Is this what I want to do for the next 20, 30 years until I retire? I turned 40. I think I had a sort of midlife crisis at 40 rather than 30, rather than the way that perhaps some people do. And I reassessed what I was getting out of life, what I was getting out of my career, and realized, I was doing okay. I was sort of happy enough, but I wasn't joyful in it. I wasn't feeling that sense of real satisfaction and real contribution to society. And yeah, having realized that I always enjoyed the teaching side of whatever I did, thought, well, actually, there are lots of people out there who do teaching full time. Perhaps you could be one of them. And yeah, I had a quick look on the government website, the Get Into Teaching website, and it just didn't quite grab me. It was aimed, I felt, a little bit at younger people. It was aimed a little bit more at people who were just sort of fairly fresh out of university, which obviously wasn't me. I was certainly not fresh at that point. And it almost didn't speak to me, I suppose. So then I think I Googled career change teaching, and Now Teach popped up, and I thought, oh, Now Teach, recognized the name Lucy Kellaway, thought, okay, yep, that sounds legitimate. And spoke to Jo, who is in the background tonight, working hard. And she, from there, I almost feel as if she sort of swept me up and said, right, yes, off we go. She gave me incredibly good advice. I almost want her to pop on camera so I can embarrass her more. Really, really detailed, knowledgeable advice. It wasn't just generic, you could do this, this, or this. It was actually, I advise you that I think this would be a good course for you. We were talking about which subject for me to teach, because I don't have a degree in any of the core subjects that schools tend to want to go for. And she said, well, you could teach history or classics because obviously they fit quite well with your background. But actually, given that you are a linguist by training in terms of what you did in your PhD, actually English is probably a better option. There are a wider choice of places you might be able to do that. You might find yourself finding it less difficult to gain employment after your teacher training. And that advice turned out to be absolutely true. I think, English is sort of a more broad subject. It's a core subject. Therefore, it's offered at every school, etc. And yeah, I mean, every time I had a question, Now Teach were there. I asked them 1,000,001 things. Every question was answered. I mean, almost instantly. Sometimes I think I barely finished typing before the answer popped up. And yeah, it felt very easy. It felt very kind of straightforward to go ahead and say, right, okay, I'm ready to put an application in. And then it was interview. And then it was, right, okay, let's talk about which school is going to be the right fit for you for teacher training. And it was like having that knowledgeable colleague or friend with you saying, I can show you how to do this. And it just, it absolutely made sense and still does.
That's fantastic.
I just realised I haven't talked about finances.
No, that's fine. I almost want to ask Jo to come online, but I don't want to do it without her permission. So
no,
just
don't
suffice to know that we have we have a team of great recruitment advisors, of whom Jo is one,
Absolutely.
and who are there to have those kind of conversations. She's here. Hi, Jo.
She is the marvellous Jo.
Question for Jo Lane then. What was it like, your first conversation with Jo Young? Jo Meet Jo. Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
You can.
Yeah, there was a lot of hi Jo, which was lovely. But I think the conversations that we had, there was a lot of questions about finances, about routes, about, subjects, as Jo's just touched upon, and we just really worked together to sort of come to the best agreement of what would be right for Jo for her teacher training year.
Lovely. Thank you, Jo. Yes, Jo Young, you had a follow-up question around what was it like financially to become a student again.
Yes, sorry, I didn't address that part.
No.
So again, that was something that Jo really helped me with, was she talked me through all the kind of financial implications of it. And one of the pieces of advice she gave was around the fact that when I went into training, there were still some bursaries available in various subjects. And she said, sometimes it has to come down to that, has to be a practical decision. There is a bigger bursary available in English than either of the other two subjects I was considering. And that did play a part. That was an important thing for me to take into account. She also talked me through the fact that you can apply for a student loan, which I did, even though I thought I'd had my fill of student loans, but no, you can get another student loan as a way of surviving through teacher training. Obviously, there are paid routes into teaching. I think those are getting further and further apart in terms of how easy they are to find. It isn't even really a year. I think that was the other thing I took away, is that, yes, okay, it's a year's training, but you start in September, you finish in July. So it's not a full year in which you cannot possibly do anything else that could get you any money. It was financially not the easiest thing I've ever done, but it was absolutely worth it, with the combination of the bursary, being careful, making sure I wasn't, being ridiculous in my own spending. The maintenance loan really helped. As a family, we took that decision that longer term, that was going to mean stability, maybe not financial stability in the sense of a very lucrative career, but stability in the sense of a career I'd want to stay with for a long time. Therefore, we wouldn't have to worry, actually, you're going to find 10 years down the line, you think, I actually really hate this and I need to do something more satisfying. So yeah, it was a sort of short-term pain for a long-term gain.
Right.
Awful. It was survivable. And I think the other thing to remember is, whilst you're on teacher training, you don't have much time to go out and do millions of really expensive activities, because you are quite busy. It's not as if you have no time at all, but you don't get, it's not like when you're a student at university and you might think, right, I'll pop down the pub tonight and the next night and so on. It's more intense than that. I'm older, I have a family. It reduces your opportunities for spending on sort of fripperies and fun time a little bit, which again helps. It helps you to get through that teacher training year. Of course, as soon as you're into your first and second ECT years, you are paid as a teacher because you are fully qualified. So it's not that long to survive before you are into
Yeah.
a advantageous position.
Brilliant. Thank you. Deepak, moving on to you. You've had a completely different career to Joe. So tell us a bit about your career change thinking, a bit more about your financial considerations, and then sort of moving on sort of through the timeline, as it were. How was teacher training for you? What was your training experience like?
Yeah, no, thank you, Matt, and delighted to be here. Now Teach has been, I would say, very, very influential in my becoming a teacher, right from the sort of word go. I came out of retirement to start teaching. So I retired from EY. Now it's been 3 years. And you probably heard someone in the first video say that, couldn't figure out how do you retire. And so I was in a similar position. I was sitting around for 6 months and I was like, I got to do something. And, you have so many projects in your head. You sort of think I can do this and I can do that and I can do anything. After 30 years of having worked in professional services across the world, I was ready to try anything. But it's that movement from that idea to actual execution, which is where Now Teach comes in. And no doubt, I was influenced by Lucy Calloway's move into teaching. But then when I started talking to Now Teach, and Jolene was my program manager back then as well. So thank you, Joe, for helping me through those early days. But you won't imagine, after 30 years of working, you don't have things like mark sheets readily available at home. You don't have, you don't fully understand, was my degree really relevant to what I'm going to teach? I love mathematics, but will my degree really support that as a teacher? And the questions around that, which I think Joe made it really, really simple for me to then think, yeah, this seemed doable. And then, talking to the Department of Education, there was a program manager from there as well, who was very helpful. So, but having said that, it's that converting the idea into execution, which is where I think Now Teach has really helped me. Just moving on to financial consideration, I think Joe has covered it really nicely. There is funding available, there's bursaries available, especially in subjects like mathematics and science, and I believe some other subjects. So it's quite easy to get all of those, and therefore you can go through your training year without a problem. But I won't repeat what Joe said. I think it's nicely covered. In terms of the training year, now this is where the fun begins. Because you start in September and you think, after 30 years of client meetings and presentations and what have you, you are cat's whiskers and you think you can stand in front of, kids are kids and you can teach and they will learn. So there are two different things. You can teach, but they won't learn. And that's the gap. That's the fundamental gap, which you need to learn in that 1 year. And you get told every day how you can improve. And that can be difficult for some. So as you heard someone else say, you got to be ready to learn something new. And through that 1 year, it helped me develop my confidence as a teacher. Not only as a teacher, I would say, but standing in front of students in state schools who come from families I'd never engaged with before. And it sounds very elitist, but when you are in a career especially in corporate sector, you don't engage with families of people who work in a motor shop or in a superstore, or you meet people, but you don't engage with their children. And here you were influencing them, trying to make them better so they can have a better career and a better life when they come out of school. And that to me is what, is the reason I get up every morning. I go to school. It's so satisfying. And I'll tell you, this morning there was an incident. It was just incredible. And I was standing there in front of my This is my top set year 9 class. And this girl from the back says, "So you're standing there smiling at us, looking proudly at us as though we were your kids." And that was an amazing feeling to have. And it's those kind of things every day that you see in teaching.
Deepak, you've always got a great story about your students. That's really nice. Thank you. I was going to make in my little script, I'd like to make a joke there, but you've sort of said something really profound, so it's fine. So thank you. That's a sort of a capsule summary of your first year, the journey into teaching, the experience of teacher training, and we'll catch up with a bit more detail about what teacher training is like. I'll ask you a question about that just in a mo. But I thought it'd be useful to move on to sort of year 2, because it's very easy when we're focusing on career change. It's the what's the next step, what's the next step. But obviously, not even thinking long term, thinking medium term. Year 2 is sort of where it gets serious potentially. So yeah, Deepak, how's your second year been as a qualified teacher? I'm particularly interested. How have you found student disruptive behaviour? Because I know that's something that audiences, people who come to these events are always particularly interested, sometimes stressed about.
Yeah, and there are students of all types of behavior across the school, and in your class of 32 students, you'll find some students who are very well mannered and some students are very disruptive. And it's that year of training that you go through, which gives you a number of tools and strategies that you can deploy when you start teaching in a classroom. Having said that, there are, in our school at least, we have sets in mathematics. So you have students who are setted on their most recent performance and assessments. And what you'll find is the top sets are brilliant. Okay, they will always do well. They're competitive. They want to achieve, and so on and so forth. And the bottom sets are typically struggling with numeracy, and you have to pay really good attention to that. And the middle ones are not sure. Some of them want to move up, some of them sort of shrug their shoulders, and you have to motivate them. And so how you bring about that self-motivation, self-regulation, commitment to the subject, how you make it interesting for them, so they are engaged in the class. And if they're engaged in the class, any number of behavior theories will tell you your behavior will not go down. And if they're not engaged in class, if you pitch the lesson too high for them or too boring for them, too simple for them, they will start behaving in a manner you would not want them to. So it's all in the teaching, and it is something that gets covered in the teacher training time with lots of practice, lots of strategies, and you come into the classroom day one prepared with that. Having said that, even with all that training, every day is a new experience. Every day is, as Joe would say as well, I mean, you learn every day as to what caused the behavior to be good or bad that particular day. But I would say over the year, Matt, as time has progressed, as you develop those relationships with students, you're able to manage those behavior aspects very, very comfortably. I mean, my worst class at the start of the year, I had an observation by another trainee teacher, and she was like, they were like angels. I said, well, you should have seen them a few months ago. And so yes, so it's a matter of putting the strategies in play as well as your relationships.
I'm also interested in sort of the way that you've been able to bring your previous career to bear on and share it with the students. I know you've started a club, I think, at school that's been quite well attended. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I was very, very excited when our head teacher showed interest in what was close to my heart, which is looking at machine learning and artificial intelligence. In my sort of last role that I had in EY, I was there, I led their automation globally. And I felt that it needed a change in the way people think about this aspect of technology for them to start using it. And there was no better place to start than at the time when they are children. And I found that it was also something that the UK government was pushing. And there was a whole program out there called the CREST Awards, which actually promoted projects around machine learning. And so I was able to bring my experience around that to then kickstart a club. And as I started the club, the first reactions that were there was, well, if you get up to 10 students, then that'll be great, because most clubs don't even get that many. And we've now run this for about 9 months, and I'm still consistently getting 30 students plus every week, Thursday lunchtime. They're there, and they've been given training on how to develop a machine learning program. And I'm not a coder. I was able to bring in my relationships, someone who came in and taught them that. So you can do various things. So you've got to think a little bit outside the box, but then it really adds to the overall experience in the school for yourself.
Mm. Thank you. That's fantastic. Joe, moving to you, your second year. How's your second year been? What's been your highlight? And I guess actually a sort of sub question again. I know you've got a young kid. I think parents in our audience are always interested / again maybe stressed about the idea of teaching, training, having kids. Yeah. So how's that been as well? So yeah, year 2, and then training with a young child.
Sure. Yeah, I'd echo everything Deepak says. I mean, your training year is crucial, because that is the sort of foundation on which you build, and you learn a huge amount in quite a short period of time. You obviously get time to put it into practice. You get very detailed feedback very, very frequently, which is like an accelerated learning process. You kind of come out forged the other end, which is quite nice. But year 1 of ECT, as it now is, used to be NQT, so year 1 of sort of proper teaching, if you like, your hours go up. So you get, at my school, we do 6 teaching periods a day, obviously times 5 days a week. You get 10% of that off anyway as a teacher. Once you are out of all the extra allowances, you get a further 10% off in your first ECT year, so your first year after qualification, which gives you time to kind of catch up, do some marking, observe other people, which I find incredibly useful. I'm observing my mentor next week, and she said, I'm going to do a whole lesson where all I do is question them, and I'm going to use a range of questioning techniques so you can see how important it is and how to do the different kinds of questioning. That kind of stuff is invaluable. So that extra time to do that really, really helps. But mainly, I think the thing that I was told by my mentor, and is absolutely proven to be true, is that this is your first year where you kind of have a little bit more autonomy, and it's your year in which you can have a bit more fun with it. You can sort of not experiment, because you know the live subjects, you don't experiment, but you try out new techniques, and you think, okay, is that going to work? Should I perhaps approach it in a different way? How do I present this content? You know, what order do I put it in? Could I build links to other curriculum areas to make this more interesting? I was teaching a piece yesterday to year 9, my nemesis year, unfortunately, and it was supposed to be flash fiction, which is supposed to be very short. We actually chose to do a poem, which wouldn't have been my choice. It wasn't really flash fiction. And I just reading through it, I was thinking they're going to hate this. It's quite dry. It's really not going to grab them. But then I knew, because my mentor also teaches them some history, that they were doing JFK in history, and the poem was by Robert Frost. So I was able to say, you know, JFK that you're doing in history, this is basically JFK's best mate, who also got sent to Russia by him as a spy. And they were like, oh, okay. A little bit more interesting than we thought. It's that kind of stuff you get to do in year 1, where you're less bound by what teacher training requirements are. You're kind of a little bit more free to make a little bit more of your own mark on the classroom, which I find lovely. Some definite highlights in terms of trying out things and finding out if they work. I've got a number of students who are reasonably challenging from time to time. I had a young lady join my Key Stage 4 English class, very disengaged, very uninterested, did not care, don't like English, is rubbish, don't want to be here, etc., etc. So I spoke to parents at home. Yes, she's severely dyslexic and she's being diagnosed with ADHD as we speak. Here are some things that we find really help with her at home. So I went back the next day and I tried them, printed out things in bigger sizes, chunked the instructions down, had a go, put her at the back of the class because she hates being made a fuss of. And she was honestly like a different child. It's that kind of moment where you're like, whoa, okay, if I'd spoken to you yesterday and said, what's the answer to this, or what do you think about this? You'd have gone, oh no. And today you're like, is it this? Which is an absolute about face from where you were. And it's that kind of where you get to take what you learn, you get to take what you're seeing every day and put it into practice and go, wow, okay, this stuff is cool because it really works. And now that kid has gone from, I hate this subject, I don't want to be here, to, okay, I might have some slight interest and I might try a little bit more to actually engage with it. She's not, she's never going to be top of the class sitting at the front with her hand up saying, miss, pick me, but that's okay, because that's not a journey she's going to take in one day, 1 week, one lesson. It's those sort of little victories that I find, those for me are the other big victories. They feel really kind of special that she got something more out of that lesson than she would have done before. In terms of family life, I mean, training year, I think probably was quite tough on my family. I was around a lot less for my daughter than she was used to. She was 7 then, she's now 8. I guess we just, we got on with it. We made the most of the fact that you do get the school holidays off, which obviously is a major bonus for people with children of their own. It does really help the fact that you can always say, listen, I know I'm marking tonight again. I know we're not able to do this. I know that I'm not around perhaps as much as you might like every day, that as much as I was when I left my work and said, right, that's it. At the end of the day, I'm going home, we're done. But in a few weeks' time, it's half term and we will have the whole week together, and it won't be you off to camp and you off to childminders and you off to after school club and what have you to try and get through those extra holidays. Actually, it's almost like gained time together. It's really lovely. The one thing my daughter will tell you is that she doesn't love the fact that I now have a teacher voice and I use it on her occasionally. And she sometimes gets annoyed with the fact that I use my behavior management knowledge on her, like, right, what I need you to do. And she's like, oh, mummy, stop being a teacher at me. You're supposed to be my mum. So she thinks that's hilarious. But she's also practicing her teacher hard stare, which you have to perfect that look of like, what are you doing? And she is getting quite good at it. So she's quite happy that she's now got that in her arsenal.
Got the inside track. And you're also being very modest there, Joe, because I'll say it to sow your blushes, but Joe was recently awarded a bronze award from the National Teachers Awards as one of this year's outstanding new teachers. So congratulations to you, Joe, for that. Everyone at Now Teach is very, very proud of you, and as I know, at your school as well. So congratulations.
Credit due to Now Teach as well.
I'm just gonna, Deepak, I know you have older children as well, so who have left home, I think, but how was career change on your family life?
Well, you're right. So I have two much older children, and they're not children, they're adults now. And so in a sense, I've crossed that stage where I have sort of family commitments of with children at home. But I will tell you, even as children grow up, they still need you. So it's a wrong notion that as they grow up, you don't have commitments. But having said that, I think my biggest supporter has been my wife. She complains sometimes that I waited all this while to get on to a time when we could go on holiday when it is not school time. And now you have to, now you get, so there you go. But she's the one who reminds me when I'm kind of tired and, just think of why you're doing it. And it's about, giving to the society. It's about contributing. And those kind of things are far more invaluable and than any other sort of reward that you might get. Mm-hmm. So for me, the family's been very, very supportive. Yes, the boys were a little, what's dad up to? I mean, is he gone crazy or something? But they've settled down with that as well.
Oh, that's lovely, thank you. So aware that we want to cover Q&A. So just to repeat again to everyone, please, if you've got any questions for Joe or Deepak, put it in the Q&A chat box, not the chat box, the Q&A box, sorry. Deepak and Joe are going to do a sort of rapid fire question now. And then I'm going to quickly do an explanation a bit more about Now Teach and our sort of most commonly asked questions, and then we will move on to the Q&A. So yes, in a minute, Deepak, we'll start with you. One of the things that we've talked about with Now Teach is the network, this group of all the other people who have changed career with Now Teach. Can you give us a little bit of a clue about how someone in Now Teach has, in the network particularly, so another career changer, has helped you on your career change experience?
Yeah. So I'd never taught in a school before, and in mathematics, my biggest worry was trying to teach the foundational subjects or topics to young students. How do you break down a topic like fractions and explain to someone, or negative numbers and so on and so forth? And I was terrified of starting off with these kids having wrong sort of concepts going into their heads. So I actually reached out to Joe, and she put me in touch with another Now teacher who's been teaching mathematics for a couple of years. He was vacationing in Greece at the time, and he called back, and then he said, well, I had the same sort of fear going in, and we hit it off really well. He lives close by, and so we got along really well. And he talked me through what he did and what kind of books helped him. And that was just fantastic.
Lovely. Consultancy from the beaches of Greece. That's what you'll get with Now Teach Network. Joe, very quickly, what's your sort of network highlight?
I mean, I have so many I could talk about, but I think it is exactly what you said. It's the interaction with other people who are at that exact same stage as you. Sometimes people who are a stage ahead of you or a couple of stages ahead of you can provide the expert advice. But I think the part I found most helpful in my training year, and still find really helpful, is the people who are going through it with you at the same time. I mean, I've said it before, but I describe Now Teach as a bit like NCT for teachers. You can ask people that you're training with, people that you're in ECT alongside, anything, and they will instantly know what you're talking about. They get the context. You don't have to go into a long explanation. And it can be, I mean, all sorts of different areas of the network. So in the English Support Hub, we talk about specific things. So it might be, how do I teach this poem? Has anyone got any advice on a particular topic that might work to kind of bring out a theme that we're trying to get to in English? It might be resources that we're sharing, it might be schemes of work that we're sharing, it might be all sorts of things like that. So it can be really specific advice, but then sometimes it's really just, as you say, that kind of like a shoulder to cry on sometimes, or someone to celebrate with. So someone to say, hey, this really cool thing happened, that another teacher will get and go, wow, that's awesome, well done you, or yay, that's so cool, I'm so pleased for your school, for your student, for your class. It's just that person, that set, that sort of individuals, but that set of people to turn to when you need a little bit of help, a little bit of a boost, a little bit of kind of talk you through the hard times, but also to go through the good times with you. I find it's like a ready-made group of friends.
Fantastic. Right, we will move on. We'll quickly say goodbye, not forever. We'll just sort of turn off your cameras if that's all right, guys, to Joe and Deepak, and Maria will put the slides back on. I'm gonna do a little précis, just a summary of what Now Teach offers, and answer our sort of most asked questions. One quick point, actually, which I saw someone asked and which I made a note of. Joe talked about being an English teacher and getting a bursary. Bearing in mind that was in 2000. Actually, now English is not one of the bursaried subjects, and I will go on to explain which subjects are eligible for bursaries in a mo. Right, yes. So Now Teach. Hopefully, you'll have got a good idea about what it's about. We're going to come back to teacher training in a minute. One of the key things I wanted to do is just talk about our offer, so be really clear. Number one, sort of a myth bust. We don't actually run teacher training ourselves. What we do is we support you to change career. We give you the one-to-one support, and then you stay part of the Now Teach network through your entire career as a teacher. So there are 3 parts to this. 1, our recruitment team support you with your initial teacher training application, all the different parts of that. And that can include coaching on the interview process, advice, that kind of thing. Number 2, we support you during your first 2 years. So that's your first year of training. And then you may have heard Joe and Deepak talking about your ECT year, so your early career teacher. 2 years of one-to-one support from your program manager, events with the rest of the network, bringing you up to speed with the big issues in education. Number 3, as we were just talking about, the network. You become part of the Now Teach network. That's hundreds of career changers. They're there to share learning and experiences with you as you train. And as Joe said, shoulder to cry on, someone to celebrate with. And Now Teachers actually say the network is really the most important part of what we do. It's the community of people, and they're all doing what you are doing as a career changer. So if that appeals to you, I recommend you submit an expression of interest via our website. It's that little blue dot that Maria is highlighting there. Filling in that form means you're going to start having conversations with our our career change advisors, and they'll expand on what we've talked about here, and they can give you advice on completing the full application. What is the application to Now Teach? Relatively straightforward. It has 2 parts: the eligibility check, so that's checking that you've got the legal requirements, and then there's the submission of a CV and a statement about your motivation to teach, about your career. If your application is successful, we invite you to a video interview to talk more. And for those people who we think they're right for Now Teach, we then make an offer to join us, and we'll then support them to secure a training place, and then on to the start of training itself. But I'm going to run through the most frequently asked questions now. So I think one question we always get asked is, what are the different training routes? Going to keep it very simple. We can expand on it in calls with you later. But there's university or there's school-based. With a university-based route, you begin in university and then you spend time in school. With a school-based route, you start in school and you learn on the job from day one. Our advisors can help you decide which suits you best. We'll ask you questions that will help you explore that with yourself. There are 2 different qualifications. There's QTS, that's the legal qualification. You must have that to teach in an estate school in England. That's the key thing. PGCE, it's the most recognised qualification, but it's an academic qualification. You'll get it from university routes. You can do it on the school-based routes. It's not compulsory. But the key thing is you can become a teacher without a PGCE. QTS is the key thing. Moving on to the next question. Am I eligible to teach? There are legal criteria for teacher training set by the government where you must have a maths and English GCSE at C or above. That brackets or equivalent is very important. If you don't have that, there's a relatively straightforward equivalency exam that you sit that demonstrates that you have the knowledge and skills equivalent to the C, and you need an honours degree, undergraduate honours degree. There are then subject criteria that are a little bit looser, but generally you need an A-level, a degree, or relevant experience in your chosen subject. And one of the great things that Now Teach can do is really sort of lobby on behalf of the experience angle, which is sometimes a little bit harder if you're sort of doing it on your own, or maybe just through the sort of existing processes. If you have overseas qualifications, that is not a blocker. You just need to apply to a government body called ENIC, and you get what's called a statement of comparability that just verifies that your qualifications from overseas are equivalent to, or explains what they are equivalent to in the UK. On the subject matter, sort of what subjects should I teach? We support trainees across a range of subjects. We especially welcome applications where there are shortage subjects. There are several reasons for that. One is the social angle. There's a shortage and children need teachers. The other is actually for you, it's a bit more straightforward because it will be easier for you to get a training place. The subjects that there are shortages, and these are where the bursaries focus, is maths, physics, chemistry, modern foreign languages, computer sciences, as you can see there. And our team can discuss the relationship between your experience and what you're interested in to make sure that you're choosing a good subject for you. Number 3 on my list, but actually I think we've had several. Finances. So we've talked a little bit, Joe and Deepak, about that. Changing career will obviously mean a change of income for many people. And I think a lot of people are thinking about their finances and budgets right now. There are tax-free government bursaries available. These vary, and we can share the details on them later, but essentially you can get up to £24,000 tax-free again for shortage subjects, which again could play a role in what subject you choose to train in. There are tuition fees that are payable for your training year, but there is a student loan, and again Joe referenced that. So it's the general cost is about £9,000, and there's a loan to cover that. There are also maintenance loans for living costs, depending on household income. They can be up to £12,000. And again, as Joe mentioned, once you get your qualified teacher status and you move, you get that actual job. You're on the salary pay scale where you get, not with, assuming that you're not sort of going under some kind of, performance review, you will get a increase every year. And that's £25,000 starting salary outside London and £32,000 in inner London. So those are a whistle-stop tour of the key questions that we get asked. Hopefully that will have sort of solved some of those things, but now we're going to move on to your questions. So Joe and Deepak, please come back onto the stage, as it were. I'm going to have a little look on the Q&A and see which ones have been questioned live. We've got, should we start with the anonymous question? That's exciting. Oh, that's about English, actually. Sorry, so I've already said that. So yeah, just to repeat, Joe was fortunate that there was a bursary for English. Well done, Joe. Unfortunately, that is not the case anymore. So apologies for everyone who may be thinking that's still there. The government does refresh its bursaries in the autumn, so it's worth if you're not seeing the subjects and sort of the amount that you're looking for, it's worth checking back in. So we've got a question from Lucy. Deepak, in an average day, what time do you start and finish, including working at home?
So, Lucy, when I started this year, I was getting up in the morning. I'm an early riser, and I would spend some time in the morning at home, and then I would be in school by around 7:30. And I would leave school on a typical day around 5:30 or so. And then I would come back after a tea and snack. I would then work for another couple of hours before going to bed. So that was when I started back in September. And I would say through the training year, it is reasonably intense as well. But I must say, sitting in June, or even I'm seeing this in the last couple of months, I don't work after 4:30 anymore. I'm able to plan well ahead of time, and I'm an early riser, so yes, I do spend that half an hour, 45 minutes in the morning. But then I also spend a couple of hours on a Sunday, just so that I'm ready for the week that's coming up. But evening after 4:30, latest 5, there's nothing that I need to do.
Great. Joe, what's your take on that angle?
Yeah, similar. I mean, I get into school a little bit later than that. I drop my daughter at breakfast club at about 7:45, and I head to school, which is about 200 yards away, conveniently. So I get to school about 2 minutes later myself. The school day starts at 7:40 for students, but there was obviously usually things before that. There's the odd briefing for 5 minutes, 10 minutes before school. As usual, printing stuff out and getting things ready. So I would sort of consider my working day probably starts about 8 o'clock, just before 8 o'clock. I think I probably finished slightly earlier than you, Deepak, but we have very, very centralized planning in my school. So we use the centralized planning really carefully. We're constantly updating it. So there's always some planning to be done, but you're not planning your lessons for the next day necessarily, which I find very helpful. So if I want to give myself extra work to do, I can replan all the lessons and make them, super busy and exciting. Mostly what I do is I tweak them. I don't tend to replan them from scratch these days. And if I'm having a really tired day or I've done loads of marking the night before, I just go, do you know what, that's probably fine. And on the spot, I can update it, or I can, the actual, the resources you put up on the screen, the resources you hand out are often all you need. It's really, I think that's the bit that comes with a little bit of experience, is that you can on the spot start to adapt it, start to change it, start to take it in a different direction, and feel that confidence of not thinking, oh, but I haven't planned that in advance, what do I do? That's, for me, that's a massive change from training year, that I can just, like, I can stand up and do it and go, well, if that doesn't work, we'll probably find something else to do, it'll be okay. I mean, a year ago, I would just, no way have done that. I'd have rather stayed up through the night and planned a lesson than do that. So I probably I tend to finish, we finish school at 3. I quite often have something after school. So I have a debate club that I run and a study hub that I help out with twice a week. So I tend to leave school about 4. I do sometimes do a little bit in the evenings. If I've got an observation the next day, I'll probably spend some time on that. I do the odd bit of marking in the evening, but because you have that 20% extra allowance of time in your ECT year, that really does help with getting on top of marking. I'm getting much better at live marking. So I mark as I'm walking around the classroom instead of taking 40 books over, marking them one by one. That really helps. Yeah, I think it's now quite doable. It was, I think, again, I agree with you, training year was a bit more intense. I was working every evening. You know, I try and make sure one evening a week I'd have a night off and at least one day at the weekend, which sounds intense, but, you know, I'm talking about getting home, stopping what you're doing, getting dinner, washing up, putting a child to bed, and then doing a few hours work after that. I'm not talking about getting home at 4 and working solidly till 10. I guess that's probably the same for anyone with a family, that you have that gap, whereas those without families might work until earlier on in the evening. But now it's very, very different. You know, I quite often have the evening off if I want to, because, you know I can get through the next day. Okay, I know I've usually got a free period coming up to do stuff. So yeah, it feels more manageable now. And colleagues in my school who are more experienced often say, I never work in the evenings, ever. I just don't do it. I manage my time in school and I make sure I do everything there, which that's the dream.
That's great. One question that I wanted to draw attention to, and I can answer it myself, no worries. I'll give you a momentary break, Joe and Deepak. Sunny said, I've already secured a training place starting in September. Can I apply for Now Teach? The answer is yes. Do get in touch with us. We are still able to support you if that's appropriate. So yeah, Sunny or anyone else who might be listening who is slightly further down the road, we can still help you. I've got another on the list. There's another question from Lucy, which is, and this will be our last one, aware it's 3 minutes to 7, so we'll whistle stop here. How much school experience did you gain before starting your training? Joe, let's start with you.
None in a sort of traditional sense. I did a little bit in one of my jobs. I was an outreach officer, so I did some work in schools, and I obviously had some experience of teaching in general, but I didn't have a chance. I applied reasonably late. I saw somebody else talking about, is it too late to apply? I was reasonably late in the year applying, so there wasn't a time, and also because of COVID, there wasn't a possibility of going into school to do any kind of shadowing or experience there. I don't feel that massively got in the way. I don't think that was the end of the world. I think if you're nervous about it, if you're not sure it's right for you, it might well be an eye-opener. It might be something that makes you confirm your view that you want to, or confirm your view that you don't want to. But I don't think it's essential if you aren't able to do so.
Deepak, what was your school experience?
Yeah, I think same response, as in I had no prior experience. But I must say, before I decided to get into teaching, I attended, I think, 5 different school open days, just so that I was convinced this is what I wanted to do. But aside from that, I had no prior experience. The PGC and QTS ran simultaneously for 1 year. And that's it.
Great, thank you. I'm aware we could have talked about millions of things, such as training in COVID and students in COVID and the importance of COVID catch-up, but we don't have time for that, I'm afraid. If you listening at home are interested in that kind of thing, do keep an eye on Now Teach's social media feeds. We're planning some events for the summer where we're going to talk about some of these sort of issues in education. But I think we're going to wrap up now. So I guess before, I do want to leave Joe and Deepak with the last word, but I guess before that, I will just say we've got a team of Now Teach advisors on a virtual phone bank. And one of the things that we always like to do is to call everyone who's signed up, find out if you want to talk, any questions, any observations. So if you do get a phone call from an unknown number in the next half an hour or so, it's probably from Now Teach. If you don't want to talk to us, that is fine. We will not have hurt feelings. But if you would like to speak to us, then obviously please pick up. And yeah, we can hopefully answer some, if not all of your questions. If we can't answer them, we'll take a note and get back to you. But thank you for everyone behind the scenes who have Maria, Joe, Amy, and Rachel. But as I said, thank you most of all to Joe and Deepak. So I do want to leave the last word for you. So I've talked enough. Deepak, starting with you, what was the most helpful thing for you in deciding that you knew you wanted to become a teacher?
I think between idea and execution, this is where Now Teach comes into play. So I would say, if you have this as an idea, do talk to Now Teach. They'll help you make a decision.
You know what, I was actually going to say you don't have to say Now Teach, but you did, so that is fine.
That's the truth.
Joe.
You've stolen my answer, Deepak. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's literally that kind of between the point of thinking, I think I might want to, I'm not 100% sure, and being ready to actually do something about it. That's where Now Teach sort of, they gave me the information, they gave me the support, they gave me the advice, everything I needed. And it wasn't push, it wasn't, you know, yes, you can, come on, you can do it. It was just exactly what I needed to gently and expertly support me through into the point where I was ready to say, yeah, okay, ready to sign on the dotted line.
Brilliant. I've just remembered there's one more thing which my colleagues have been furiously messaging me about and I have not noticed. We want to get you, everyone who's logged on and listened, just want to find out how helpful you found this. So Maria is going to say, the last one will come from me, I'm sorry about that. If you could fill in this poll and just tell us honestly, you won't hurt our feelings. If you thought that was useless, tell us, we'll make it better next time. I thought it went quite well, but that's just me. Please let us know. We'll just leave that up for a minute. But yes, I could thank everyone again, but I feel like it's becoming redundant. I'll just leave this. But I'll just thank everyone who has actually logged on. Thank you to you as attendees for coming and listening, and I guess for most of all thinking about teaching. As you may have gathered, we all think teaching's a great career, and it's more than just what it is for you, it's for young people. So yeah, if you've filled in the poll, then you can go on your merry way and expect a call later on this evening. But otherwise, I'll just leave this up, and I'm sort of filling dead air now, like a local radio DJ. There we go. It's all wrapped up. So thank you from me, thank you from them, and thank you to you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I hope maybe there's a warm place where you can go and sit out and enjoy something cold. Have a good evening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.